Imagine the feeling of watching your money disappear. You open your banking app and see a lower balance than you expected, or you realize you invested in something that quickly lost value. Frustration hits instantly, regret starts to build, and the inevitable question pops into your mind: how did I let this happen? Studies show that the psychological pain of losing money is twice as strong as the satisfaction of gaining it. It's not just about the amount lost. It's the feeling that you made a mistake, that something slipped out of your control. This pain directly influences our financial decisions. It can push us to sell investments too early, double down on bad bets, or even spend impulsively in an attempt to make up for a loss. Companies and scammers know this and exploit it to the fullest. Casinos design their rules to keep you playing. After a loss, get-rich-quick schemes prey on those desperate to recover from financial setbacks, and even marketing tactics use this pain to push impulsive purchases. The more we try to avoid the feeling of loss, the more vulnerable we become. This cycle of regret and frustration can keep us trapped for years. But does losing money always have to be a traumatic experience? Over 2,000 years ago, the Stoics studied this pain and discovered how to deal with the suffering caused by financial loss. And today, you're going to understand why this pain happens and how to overcome it once and for all. If losing money were just a mathematical issue, we'd feel nothing more than mild annoyance. But reality is very different. Financial loss triggers an intense emotional response, a mix of frustration, regret, and even shame. It's not just about the money itself, but what that loss represents: a mistake, a missed opportunity, a personal failure. And this pain isn't limited to major financial setbacks. Think about the feeling of spending money on something only to realize soon after that it was useless, or the regret of selling an investment too early and missing out on huge gains. What truly haunts us isn't just the money that's gone. It's the thought that we could have avoided the loss if we had just made a different choice. This pain runs even deeper when we face losses that can't be undone. The entrepreneur who invests their savings in a business that fails, the person who trusts their finances to a fraudulent scheme and watches years of hard work disappear, the family struggling to maintain their lifestyle after an unexpected financial crisis. In these moments, the loss isn't just material. It eats away at confidence, damages self-esteem, and can even reshape how someone sees their own worth. And it's exactly this pain that drives people to extreme reactions. Some go into denial, refusing to accept their loss, holding on to bad investments, or resisting necessary lifestyle changes. Others react impulsively, desperate to recover what they lost, which often only makes things worse. This is when irrational decisions emerge, doubling down on risky bets, falling for get-rich-quick scams, or compulsively spending as a way to ease frustration. If financial loss causes so much pain, is the solution simply to avoid it at all costs? Not exactly. The real question isn't just how to prevent losses, but how to handle them when they inevitably happen. After all, If the pain of losing money is so intense, shouldn't we learn to face it instead of letting it control us? Financial loss doesn't just hurt your wallet, it deeply affects how you see yourself. When we lose money, it's not just a material setback, it feels like a hit to our self-esteem. We get stuck in thoughts like, how could I have been so naive? I should have made a different decision. This should never have happened to me. The pain comes less from the money itself and more from the sense of personal failure. And often that pain doesn't fade quickly. It can turn into a constant psychological burden, a daily reminder that I shouldn't have made that mistake. Some people relive their loss over and over, analyzing every detail of their bad decision as if they could somehow rewrite the past. Others start doubting their ability to make good financial choices, which can lead them to avoid any risk or miss out on future opportunities. This pain also changes us on a deeper emotional level. It can create resentment, shame, and even make us distrust others. Someone who lost money by trusting the wrong person might start seeing every opportunity as a potential trap. Someone who suffered a major loss might carry a lingering sense of injustice, as if the universe unfairly took something from them. And as this pain builds up, it can make us more rigid, defensive, and insecure about money. The cruelest part of this experience is that in many cases, the pain doesn't just come from what was lost. It comes from what we believe we lost. If a financial setback makes us feel less secure, less capable, or less worthy, it's because we've tied money to something bigger than it really is. When that happens, it's not just our bank account that suffers, it's our peace of mind and our sense of self-worth. But is this pain inevitable? Does losing money always have to be a traumatic experience? Or is there a way to face financial setbacks with a healthier mindset? To answer that, we need to understand how the Stoics viewed loss and why, to them, suffering wasn't always an unavoidable fate. If losing money causes so much suffering, then the solution must be to never lose anything, right? But what if that very idea is the root of the problem? To the Stoics, true freedom wasn't about protecting material wealth at all costs. It was about developing a mindset that wouldn't be destroyed by loss. According to them, financial suffering doesn't come from the loss itself, but from our attachment to what we own. Epictetus taught that it's not external events that affect us, but rather our interpretation of them. Money, by itself, has no power to make us suffer. It's our belief that we can't live without it, or that a financial loss defines our self-worth, that truly hurts us. If we see loss as an irreversible tragedy, it becomes an unbearable emotional burden. But if we accept it as an inevitable part of life, its impact weakens. This idea might seem extreme today, but it wasn't just philosophical theory. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and a devoted Stoic, practiced negative visualization. He would imagine losing everything so that, if it ever happened, he'd already be mentally prepared. This didn't mean he wanted to lose, but rather that he trained his mind not to be shattered by it. He understood that the pain of financial loss doesn't come from the money itself, but from our inner resistance to accepting it. Perhaps no one felt this pain more than Croesus, the king of Lydia. Once one of the wealthiest men of the ancient world, he believed his fortune was a shield against misfortune. But his obsession with preserving his wealth led him to disastrous decisions. When he lost everything to the Persians, the pain wasn't just financial, it was emotional and psychological. His identity crumbled along with his fortune. This is an extreme example of how tying money to self-worth can make loss unbearable. The Stoics believed that to avoid this kind of suffering, we must train our minds to accept loss before it happens. Musonius Rufus, another great Stoic teacher, encouraged exposing ourselves to small hardships voluntarily to reduce our attachment. He advised his students to spend periods living with less than they could afford, just to test their fears and realize that deprivation wasn't as terrible as they imagined. Proof that this mindset works can be seen in countless historical figures and modern investors who, after massive financial losses, managed to rebuild. What separates those who collapse from those who recover isn't the amount of money lost. It's their ability to see loss as a temporary challenge rather than a permanent defeat. Resilience in the face of financial loss doesn't come from avoiding risk, but from knowing how to handle the emotional impact when it happens. Another key Stoic concept for overcoming this pain is focusing only on what's within our control. As Epictetus taught, worrying about things we can't change is a waste of mental and emotional energy. If a financial loss has already happened, dwelling on it won't undo the past. It only keeps us trapped in it. Instead, the Stoics advised focusing on the actions we can take to move forward, rebuild, and learn from the experience. But preparing for loss doesn't mean living without money or ignoring its importance. The Stoics weren't advocates of poverty. They preached emotional control in the face of loss. They believed we should control our money, not be controlled by it. This means that the solution to financial pain isn't avoiding loss at all costs. It's changing how we react to it. And this mindset shift doesn't happen on its own. The Stoics developed specific methods to apply these principles in real life and overcome the pain of financial loss. Now let's explore how these actions can transform the way you handle money. The pain of financial loss can feel unbearable, but the Stoics had a method for dealing with this kind of suffering. They didn't teach people to avoid losses because that's impossible, but rather to reduce their emotional impact and regain balance quickly. To the Stoics, the real tragedy wasn't losing money. It was allowing that loss to destroy your peace of mind. The first Stoic action is to accept loss as a part of life. Marcus Aurelius said that we should view everything we own as temporary, something that could leave us at any moment. This doesn't mean being indifferent to money, but rather recognizing that it was never guaranteed. When we understand that loss is a natural possibility, it becomes less painful. A practical exercise for this is to mentally revisit past losses and realize that despite the initial pain, you survived, learned, and moved forward. The second action is to change the meaning of loss. Epictetus taught that it's not events themselves that affect us, but how we interpret them. If we see financial loss as absolute failure, it becomes unbearable. But if we view it as a learning experience, its emotional weight decreases. A powerful Stoic exercise is to ask yourself, what did this loss teach me? Instead of focusing on what was taken, concentrate on what was gained in terms of knowledge, maturity, and resilience. A great example of this is the Stoic philosopher Gaius Rubelius Plautus, who lost all his wealth and social status when he was exiled by Nero. Instead of surrendering to despair, Plautus used the experience to deepen his philosophical studies and found a new purpose beyond power and riches. His story illustrates the Stoic principle that losing material possessions doesn't mean losing yourself. True wealth lies in what cannot be taken away. The third Stoic action is to free yourself from regret. Often, what hurts most isn't the money lost, but the thought that we could have avoided the loss. We get stuck in the past, replaying our mistakes and mentally punishing ourselves. But as Seneca said, what is past is no longer in our power. The only value of a mistake is the lesson it provides for the future. Everything else is unnecessary suffering. To apply this, whenever you feel regret over a loss, ask yourself, is this still within my control? If the answer is no, accept it and move on. Another classic example of resilience in the face of financial loss is Julius Caesar. Early in his political career, he accumulated massive debt by financing campaigns to gain influence in Rome. Many in his position would have been consumed by despair or the humiliation of bankruptcy. But instead, Caesar saw his debt not as a burden, but as an investment in his future. He persisted, leveraged his strategic connections, and ultimately rebuilt his position of power, becoming one of the most influential figures in history. His story proves that financial loss doesn't have to be a death sentence. It can be just another obstacle on the path to greatness. The fourth action is to rebuild financial confidence gradually. A major loss can shake our sense of security and make us afraid to take any risks, but the Stoics believed in the power of small, steady progress. If a financial setback has left you feeling insecure, rebuild your relationship with money through small actions. Reorganize your budget. Make one mindful financial decision each day. Study investments. Confidence is regained through small victories. Putting these practices into action requires more than just knowledge. It takes a real commitment to a new way of thinking. If you want to deepen this transformation and learn how to apply Stoic principles to build a healthier relationship with money, I recommend reading the ebook Stoic Wealth: How Philosophical Lessons Can Transform Your Financial Life. This guide combines Stoic teachings with practical strategies to help you develop financial intelligence without being controlled by emotions. The link to access it is in the first pinned comment. In the end, the Stoics didn't teach people to avoid loss, but to avoid the unnecessary suffering that comes with it. Money will come and go, but the ability to move forward without being destroyed by it is what truly matters. Why does losing money hurt so much? Because financial loss doesn't just impact our bank account, it shakes our emotional security, our self-esteem, our ego, and the way we perceive our own worth. We're conditioned to see money as a symbol of stability and success. So when something slips out of our control, it feels like failure, like we're vulnerable, like we've lost more than just a number. We've lost the feeling that we're on the right path. But the Stoics teach us that this pain doesn't come from the loss itself. It comes from the way we interpret it. Money is a temporary resource. It flows in and out as life circumstances change. If we tie it to our identity, every loss feels like a deep wound. But when we realize that our true stability doesn't come from money, but from our ability to adapt and move forward, the pain loses its grip. Nothing that can truly be lost ever really belongs to us. Now I want to hear from you. What's the financial loss that impacted you the most? How did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments. Your story might help others see their own losses in a new light. If this video gave you a new perspective on money and emotions, leave a like to support the channel and subscribe for more content on Stoicism and finance. After all, the knowledge you gain today might be what spares you from suffering tomorrow. Remember, you are not defined by your loss. It's just another obstacle on your journey. Stay on the path to prosperity until we meet again.